Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
As a writer, I'm great with words, but I rely on Rounded to do the number crunching. Not only has it helped me get my head around my business finances without needing to rely on anyone else, Rounded also tells me who my top clients are and if I have a slow patch coming up. Plus, I can see exactly which of my services bring in the most money so I can make informed business decisions. So much control, but without the stress.
And don't forget, if you're a member of Rachel's List, a gold member of Rachel's List, you're in luck because you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan. Hi Rach, how are you? We've got another great guest this week, and it's all about getting published, which we know is always popular with our listeners.
Yes, it definitely is. We're talking to literary agent Lou Johnson this week, and she's going to tell us all about how agents work, as well as offer a few tips on getting published, which we know is of interest to many of our listeners out there.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce Lou?
Okay, yes, I can do that. So, over a career spanning more than 30 years, Lou Johnson has worked globally with hundreds of authors, brands, and businesses to shape and share their stories. She's had previous roles at Simon & Schuster, All Really Senior, Murdoch Books, Allen & Unwin, Random House. She was the manager of ABC's retail concessions and founder of publishing startup The Author People. She's also been a vice president of the Australian Publishers Association, was a founding member of the Indigenous Literary Foundation and a board member of the Stella Prize. And Lou has just launched Key People Literary Management with agent, publisher and author Jeanne Ryckmans. Welcome, Lou.
Wow, welcome.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Well, look, 30 years, that's a long time in publishing.
Yes.
You must have seen some big changes in that time. So tell us what you've witnessed.
Yeah, it's a dubious honour, isn't it, when you start sort of counting
We feel your pain.
multiple decades. I've chosen to own it and wear it proudly. I actually grew up in publishing. I was incredibly lucky. My father was he came to Australia with Penguin Books. Alan Lane, who was the founder of Penguin Books, got my dad to come across, and I was born here, and when he was doing a year's stint over in Australia, and that was from the UK. So I grew up at the knee of authors, agents, personalities, all sorts of people, and my father's got the most incredible stories of those early days of publishing in Australia. So I've seen all those changes, but then in my own career, extraordinary changes over that period. I think the key ones, and in a way there's been a through line happening here, it's been the commercialisation of the industry. You know, what was once a gentleman's business that was very, literary, that was, very much club, you had, it was hard to gain access to it, and it was very editorially led. As it's become more commodified, as the environment has changed, it's shifted from being so editorially led to probably more sales and marketing led. I saw those big shifts in the retail environment where we went from books being sold through bookshops to books mostly being sold through discount department stores, other commercial outlets, then obviously online channels. And then interesting shifts sitting underneath that, because with the rise of what we call the big box retailers, so those discount department stores, or that whole period of Borders, Angus and Robertson, etc., we saw the way that we did business shifted to accommodate retailers. So it almost became retailer-led.
Yeah.
Then we moved into digital disruption, which was incredibly exciting because everything became much more democratized, and it became more audience-led. And that's the bit that's always excited me, is that pure exchange between creator and audience. And I think the whole industry is still catching up with that. And digital disruption covered so many different areas. It shifted the retail climate. It obviously shifted formats. It meant that suddenly you could access a market and an audience, or authors could, without having to be totally reliant on a publisher. So there was a bit of a power shift there. And also it shifted audience behavior and expectation quite dramatically.
Just in like how people consume books, because you can, listen to them now, or, read them on the Kindle, or have a real book. It's sort of.
Yeah. And beyond that, it's how they have a relationship with the creator.
Yeah. Well, I follow a lot of authors on Instagram and things, and they have this direct connection with their audience.
You can get closer to them, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different. And that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because of that whole idea of being able to have a direct relationship, that obviously then totally upended the traditional promotional channels. So again, a lot of that used to be driven by retailers. So what's sitting underneath all of this is a big shift from moving from what was a supply-driven business. So really stack the books up in the right retail channels, utilize their promotional mechanisms, have some really good publicity. You could probably create a book. Whereas what we're seeing more and more is a demand-driven environment.
People go into bookstores and ask for a book,
or search online, or the way that, because recommendation has always been a really big part of book sales, but it operates differently now. And so really then it's about, the supply piece is still really important, but the demand is driving it rather than the other way around.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I certainly pick up a lot of books these days that everyone's talking about. I think, like there might be, the one I've just finished is Yellowface, which is a great novel actually about the publishing industry. It's quite funny. But I heard about that. Everyone was talking about it. Couldn't even identify where, but it was one that has a lot of buzz and everyone's chatting. And I can't remember that happening a few years ago.
Well, I think it did, but in a different way. What happens now is it amplifies a lot more quickly and a lot more widely. The other thing that we've seen is niches, the growth of niche. And whereas publishing for a long time was very generalist, and also super subjective. So you'd often get books being published because of the tastes of various editors, or even whoever was sitting around the table in a publisher's acquisition meeting. Whereas now audience again is driving that a little bit more. And because we can find audiences in a way that's not totally dependent on being able to get those books into book retail outlets in a physical sense, suddenly it's opened up that niche opportunity, which is actually very exciting, because you can serve the audience a lot more effectively than you ever could.
That's interesting.
Amazing.
So tell us about some of your big publishing successes and some of your favorite memories. You must have a few.
Well, all of it is a team sport. It's not just about one person. And I said before, it's very much what I've always loved is supporting that connection between the creator and their audience. So, we're all just participants in that. And there have been a whole range of things that I've been incredibly lucky to be part of. I was at Allen Unwin I was the sales director there when we published the last 2 Harry Potters in Australia.
Wow.
That was amazing. And it was not just the feverish, demand for those. It was all the logistics. It was, we printed 1 million copies of the last book. So making the decisions as to how many copies to print, like how many physically you could get around the country, that totally changed the way that we could deal with some of the retailers. It was really fun. That I said no to Woolworths to stocking the book because we couldn't get them stock. We literally couldn't produce enough of the book. So there was, a shift in again, it sort of made everything grow up commercially, which was very, very exciting. And I have worked with just a who's who of incredible names, Michael Crawford, Jackie Collins, Linda LaPlante. I loved my time at Murdoch Books, where we were working with Murdoch. Really, we reshaped that as a lifestyle brand. So I got to work with some incredible people there. Bill Granger, Ron Kahn. I feel like I'm going to sort of leave out a whole lot of names. Neil Perry. One of my favourite moments, though, was with my now business partner, Jeanne Ryckmans, and we approached Gloria Steinem to do a book from Australia.
Oh, wow.
And that was a wonderfully audacious thing to do, and it was a collected wisdom of Gloria, which is what we conceived it as. The book that we landed with was a little different because she already had a second book deal with a publisher in the US. But we ended up being the Australian UK publisher for that, which was pretty exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Wow. And then probably my most memorable moment is Salman Rushdie touring many years ago, just after the fatwa had been issued. And he came to a conference at Random House and he was using my car. And the whole team didn't know that he was coming. It was a big surprise. And I remember running beside the car, sort of almost being like part of the security detail. I felt like I was in the FBI or something. So that was pretty cool.
Wow. Oh my God. Many more to come, I'm sure, Lou.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. It's a pretty cool industry to be part of.
Yeah, totally. Well, so many of our listeners, you know, as we were talking about offline, are writers and journalists who have either written a book or are interested in writing one. So where should they start? I know that's a big question.
Look, it is, and I always throw a question back. I start that question or answer that question with a question. It depends why they want to do it. Really understanding the purpose sitting behind it drives the answer to that. It also depends what a successful outcome looks like. So for a lot of creators, I say just do it because you have to. And I think that's still a truism. I think that's particularly the case in fiction, because I think if you attach too hard to an outcome in fiction, then you start to try and manufacture your work too much and you lose a lot of authenticity. If it's non-fiction, I think you need to work out the outcome. Do you want to get a commercial outcome out of that? Or do you just want to do it for other purposes? So if it's for a commercial outcome, you really need to understand why it's going to sell. Just because you might have something worth saying, it doesn't mean that people want to read it or buy it.
Yeah. So that's a bit about like the next question we're going to ask. There is a saying that everyone has a book in them. But do they? Or should some people just not be publishing or trying to write a book? Or what do you think?
You're right. It does connect. Again, it comes down to why and what the purpose is. I think probably most people have got a book in them, but I don't know that most people can necessarily share that in a really entertaining way. No, actually, a lot of people are natural storytellers, but you've got to be able to corral that into a narrative that's going to stick, right? That's going to be enticing for the reader. Yeah, I think about it. Again, it comes down to you might have a great story to tell, fine, but just because you've got a good story to tell, you from that moment really you've got to think about why, what it's going to give to the reader. What's the value for the audience? And I think it can start as quite an interior process, of course it is, but it actually needs to be a lot more selfless than that if you want it to be commercially valuable.
Interesting.
So you need to know who you're writing it for. Like you couldn't just write it for yourself. It actually has to have an audience before you even start, sort of thing.
If you want it to have a commercial outcome, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a little different, as I said, for fiction. I think fiction and non-fiction are quite different beasts. But I think if you're envisaging that your book is going to find an audience, you really need to. I've got a whole process I go through, but it's really, again, the why. Then really understand who it's for, like really, really quite deeply understand who it's for. And you need to have a core reader in mind so that you can actually build out from there. Don't try and do something that's going to be for everyone. And you need to understand how they're going to find out about it. A bit of sort of my own jargon that I've come up with over the years is this idea of a message and a messenger. Firstly, do you have a compelling message? Is it right for the moment? You know, is it going to tap into the zeitgeist? You've got to remember that a book might not hit the market for a good year plus after you've completed it. So is it going to miss its moment, or is it going to be hitting at the right moment? Is it going to be ahead of its time? And then that message has to be wrapped up in a compelling way as well. So you've got your message, but then you as the author, also the messenger. So it's the way you write that, it's your style. There might be other books in the market that are in a similar space, but maybe you've got a unique way of sharing that story. Maybe you've got a unique platform. you definitely need to have some kind of existing audience connection, I think,
Yeah.
because it's very tricky to find that audience otherwise.
Okay. Well, let's chat a little bit about what agents do. Does every author need an agent? And if so, how do you find the right one?
I feel like a broken record because, again, it's outcome based.
Yep.
And it's really interesting because for many years I said to people, I didn't, not everybody needs an agent. And actually they don't. If you are, an agent's role really is to commercialize your work. So if that's an aspiration that you have as an author, an agent can definitely clear the path for that.
Yeah.
An agent is going, it's hard to penetrate into publishing. It's hard to, penetrate agents as well. Lots of people don't take unsolicited work. But an agent will be a first filter because they've got a good sense of what publishers are looking for and what's happening in the marketplace. And I often used to say to people, if you've got, particularly people with a platform, if you've got an existing relationship with a publisher, you can find it, you probably don't need an agent. I've agented a little bit in the past, but really agenting is fairly new for me. And I've just done a couple of deals, and it's been very gratifying in that I've seen the value that a good agent really brings into the mix because they're your commercial manager. And the thing is, when it's your own work, there's a fragility in that. There's a vulnerability. And your agent is your advocate. And they're also a little less, of course, they're less subjective. They're sort of taking the helicopter view and looking at the best option for you. And certainly what we want to do at Key People is think about that creator's relationship with their audience over and above a book as well. So thinking about where a book sits in their whole relationship with the audience. Can that book become something else? Really the book is kind of maybe that narrative sort of spine, but it's just part of the whole equation.
So would an agent ever have cause to work in self-publishing if, say, there was a book that went off in self-publishing and wanted to move to trad publishing? Would an agent have a role in that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because they could broker a commercial deal for you. So I would say if somebody's had enormous commercial success in self-publishing, what tends to happen is publishers find you.
That's what I was thinking. Like, does that cut the agent out, sort of thing?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
It's an easy route to a relationship. And look, I've been a publisher, and our model when I was at Murdoch was what I would call commissioning. So we weren't really working with agents very much at all. We were going and finding people, and I think there's a purity in that. But then if I put the creator hat on for a minute, they were trusting that we were the best deal for them, right? Now with my publisher hat on, of course I was. I felt like we were the best option for them. But I think if you can access an agent and you're pretty confident that there's a market for your book and there's publisher demand, it probably makes sense to work with an agent. Having said that, an agent is going to cost you 15% of, on average, but they do take care of a whole lot of the business stuff. And that I think that's incredibly valuable. And they might get you a much better deal. And it's not only just going to be the financial deal, it's going to be the right fit and ideally a proper partnership with the publisher. Because if you don't have all of those things in place at the beginning, and there's so many gray areas at the beginning, and if you don't understand the environment, you don't know what questions to ask. And that can really trip people up, and that can really lead to some very unhappy relationships. Whereas the right relationship with the right publisher should, and possibly with an agent in the mix, should just mean that the work that you've created, just everything gets better and better. The results are amplified. Whereas in a poor experience, it feels like death by 1,000 cuts, or it can.
I certainly know with my son-in-law who has an agent, and he's got one in London now, but because his books he got to a different thing. There's all the other elements. I mean, he's sold international rights, he's sold film rights and broadcast rights. And I think with all that stuff, if you're ever in that league, the agent for him is really valuable because he can, he doesn't have the contacts with the US publishers otherwise. And it's all getting the right deal internationally. And
it is the right deal, because if you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But again, you have to find the right agent, because there are people who are, have different strengths, different areas that, different genres, different relationships, different networks. Yeah, you need to be, I guess you need to be confident if you're working with an agent that they are going to add value for you.
Yeah.
What sort of mistakes do prospective authors make when you see them, when they come to you? What sort of things do you see?
Well, again, I've seen it from a range of different areas. And I think because for a long time there was such a high barrier to entry for publishing, I touched before on this sort of power dynamic, which I actually really can't stand. And publishing was very opaque. So people might just feel so grateful that a publisher was interested in their work, if they were. So it can be a mistake to not really do the due diligence. It can also be a mistake to not respect is maybe too strong a word, but not sort of just understand that a publisher is in business.
Yeah.
So, and I think because it's what often, like with a lot of books, it's a creative exercise, and there can be a really tough thing in that sort of collision between art and commerce. So sometimes people feel like if a publisher is saying certain things, it's personal, but it might just be that your work isn't the right fit for that publisher, or like that person within that publisher. And also it's just useful for everybody to understand what the desired outcomes are. Where are the bits where you can connect? Because I also I get frustrated sometimes because, say publishing's opaque, and that means that often prospective authors don't have access to enough information. But also publishers need to have the most deep understanding they can of what it feels like to be an author.
Yeah.
So there needs to be this mutual respect in that exchange, because ultimately it's a partnership.
Yeah.
And so, I think the mistake is there should never be a power imbalance. There should be a healthy understanding of what a good outcome looks like and what are the steps that need to be taken for a good outcome, and to have really good communication, because often also authors make mistakes in that they don't communicate effectively with their publishers, and then maybe you've got a late manuscript delivery, and all those things have a major knock on commercially.
Yeah. Well, we know from your bio that you've worked in sales and marketing in publishing. What sort of things really help to sell a book?
Well, we've touched on some of these things. I think there are some really ephemeral things, like some of the books that I've been involved with that have sold incredible amounts. They've just had this sort of fairy dust. It's almost like, I call it the goosebump test. There are just some, you just, right? But also there are some incredible books that don't sell. It's really sad. And some pretty mediocre books that sell like crazy, because they it just might be the zeitgeist, or it's the one that got people talking. But I think the core things come down to, is it useful? Is it going to add value? Is it being delivered in a really digestible way for the intended audience, and that the audience are going to know about it? So there's got to be something sitting underneath it to light the spark, whatever that is. Once upon a time, it used to be great publicity. It doesn't operate. It's very hard to get something up from a standing start.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some kind of core sitting underneath it. That core might be the TED Talk. It might be the great piece of research that has had engagement. So you need some kind of engaged audience to build out from, and then it's working out how to layer the communications with a similar part of the message. You don't want it to be too fragmented, if it makes sense, because you still want, those basic rules of marketing. You just want repeated touch points, because it often will take people a few goes for something to sort of really penetrate, and for them to then make the decision to move to a purchase. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it does. But I was wondering more, like you mentioned marketing just now, like in a deeper sense of that, would you advise authors to really perhaps, do some training in social media marketing or book talk or something like that to amplify their book? Is that really important now?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of hate to say it because
Yeah.
because it can snuff the very life out of everyone.
Yeah.
But I think you need to understand how consumers behave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't operate in a vacuum. And then you can choose how you decide to engage with that or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
But to sit in a vacuum and then just expect that your book will sell means you haven't done your due diligence.
Right.
And yeah, I just think you need to understand how those things work and what a
That it's a
competitor might be
business.
doing in the space. Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, it is a business. Yeah.
Yeah. So authors have to have a business hat on as much as publishers do.
I believe that they do. Yeah, if they want their book to be really commercially successful. You know, you can call yourself an author if your book does not, you know, it's no less valid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. But if you want to get that strong commercial outcome, you need to really understand the landscape and just equip yourself with as much information as you can. Another thing is talking to other authors, getting into author communities, just building knowledge. But you again, be careful about what you go and spend money on. So that is another trap that people can fall into. Yeah. Do the research. And I feel like there are enough places that you can ask questions to just find out. You know, even places like the Society of Authors are really great resources.
Yep. Yep.
So I want to ask about your agency, because you've just started this new agency. Tell us how that came about.
Well, Jeanne and I have known each other for a long time. We met over 20 years ago when we were both working at Random House, sitting on other sides of the table from in an acquisitions meeting. So in publishing, all projects come into this terrible term, acquisitions meeting. So you have publishing, sales and marketing, etc., sitting around the table. So I was heading up the marketing, Jeanne was publishing, and I think we just recognised kindred spirits. To be honest, got on well from the beginning. I've always had a shared sensibility. I think we've been professional friends, probably more than friends, only because of circumstance. We've over the years become more friends, but I think that gave us a really great starting point for a business. Over those years, every so often when we've caught up and, you know, we've cooked up things like that Gloria Steinem, like I said, we've gone, oh, it could be fun to work together one day. And then circumstances just were right at this moment in time. And what the driver for both of us is that connection piece that I've talked about a couple of times, and also seeing that as audiences are continuing to operate differently, and those changes that we touched on before, actually providing incredible opportunities for sharing stories. And it's exciting to be in the space of an agent because you can work across multiple formats, not just in a book. So we get to kind of play in a whole lot of different spaces and really get to be that champion of the author's work and that conduit to the audience, which is very exciting.
Wow. And are you guys on the lookout for new authors?
Yes and no. I don't mean that in a kind of again, I don't like the preciousness sometimes of publishing or feeling like it's a club. But we're just starting out, and we're going to have quite a few people we're representing from the very beginning. I know the whole audience probably will totally understand that we're right at the minute going through all those admin processes of setting up a business. And we want to make sure that we're able to deliver what it is. We have a vision that we want to deliver, which is really career management and working as a co-producer with that author. So one of the things that Jeanne and I both bring to the table is that we've both been publishers and we've both worked within publishers deeply. So we understand what that looks like. Jeanne is a published author. We're both creators. So we understand sort of, I guess, both sides of the picture, and we just want to be able to do that really, really well. So the kinds of authors that we want to work with, or we're really saying probably more writers and creators rather than strictly authors, are people whose work has the potential to reach an audience in multiple ways, that there can be other touch points. You know, that might be speaking engagements. It's always going to start with a book, but, you know, there might be a whole lot of different ways that they can be having that connection.
Interesting.
Great.
And we have a very strong focus on nonfiction as well.
All right.
Okay.
So I want to ask, which we've asked a few people in publishing, authors and everything, the $1 million question or not. Can you make a living as an author of books in Australia? And is there a difference between a fiction author and a non-fiction author in terms of like earning capacity?
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, we've all, probably the whole audience sees the regular stats that go out about the average earnings of an author. I think it's about $12,000 these days. but that's across a very generalised picture. Again, it depends what type of author you are. Some fiction authors can make a great living. You know, Liam Moriarty has got to that point. And there's a lot of luck involved in that. I think that once again connects to what we were saying at the beginning. Do it because you have to. I think trying to manufacture that career is difficult. And most authors, you know, successful fiction authors, it's not their full-time job, or it takes several books before it is. It's very unusual to have the breakout book on book one. And I know you might have a different example, but normally, and particularly in genre fiction, it's 3 to 5 books in that it really takes off, if you're lucky. In non-fiction, if you've got solid existing platform, strong engagement with the audience, and it's good content that is happening at the right time, you can make some solid money out of that. But it's probably not going to be what you're going to make your living from. So, for instance, at somewhere like Murdoch, where I was, a book was a core part of a business strategy. It wasn't in and of itself the business strategy. So if
you're talking about a chef or something like that, they're probably still making most of their money from their restaurant, but this is a good part of their brand and maybe would bring people to that restaurant if they're
absolutely. For them, it's much more a piece of their branding. And then as a publisher, you've got to be conscious of is you don't really want it might be great branding for them, but it might not be commercially interesting for the publisher. So like in the illustrated books, as a publisher, you really got to be thinking you can sell 10,000 copies for it to really start to be commercially worthwhile, just because the costs that sit underneath that are so high. I mean, it's an $80,000 to $100,000 investment. So at Murdoch, I always used to say, not just to the team, but also to prospective authors, and these were people who understand this. They're business operators, a lot of them are entrepreneurs. Is every time that a publisher is working with you, it's like investing in a startup. Right. And that's, going back to that thing about the mistakes that people make is not understanding it in that framing. And even for a lot of people working within publishing, they've come up through that sort of more creative path, and they haven't sort of in a way had exposure to that commercial consideration, right? So everybody's sort of slightly on the back foot, and it's okay to say, we're making an investment in you. Now, are we the right fit as a partnership? And are we going to serve each other's objectives in that partnership?
Okay. Well, we wanted to also just chat to you about working in book publishing. Do you have any tips for people wanting to get in the door?
It's much harder than I wish it was, to be honest. I don't feel like the industry has invested nearly enough in bringing through a next generation of talent. I don't want to sort of finish that on a negative note, though. I think finding out connection points. What's been really exciting, you touched on Book Talk before, has been the way that people have built their own influence within publishing, and they're not sitting within publishers. So I think really keeping an eye on those sorts of things, working out how to be networked. And a lot of that is going to happen through social. And work out if there are particular publishers who you think are a good fit for you. And the way you can do that is, even if there are books that you love reading, is just see where those books are coming from. And it's just finding what you like. It's the network thing. It's, you've got to find somebody like LinkedIn is a very, very good resource that probably gets underused. And, a lot of people go off and do publishing courses and things like that. It feels like increasingly that seems to be a minimum entry point for a lot of publishers. I don't think it's the only one, but it definitely seems to be a useful thing to do.
Yeah.
Let's ask about your sort of daily life. Do you have a daily or weekly routine? Because it sounds like you've got quite a diverse sort of work sort of flow. So what does your usual week look like?
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting because I am now working for myself. It's very different to the way my week used to look.
Less meetings, probably.
Yeah. And I'm working from home, and my life is probably even a lot more family oriented than it used to be.
Yeah.
I shifted away. I actually lost my job a year ago really suddenly, and that was crap, but really great because it forced me to have a bit of a reckoning with my identity, ego, all sorts of things, and how I wanted to live my life. So Jeanne and I are both pretty clear in doing this business that we don't want it to take over our lives. I've had a business before. I know how that can feel. So back to the question around structure, we're just starting out with this and really just trying to find what that structure looks like. And I mean, in broad terms, though, it's not crazy early starts. It's a relatively contained day, but trying to be as efficient as possible, trying to map the week out a little bit so I don't find that I'm doing little bits all over the place, which I think can be a real trap. But at the same time, when you work in the way that probably we're all working, the flexibility means that you do. Like I'll be on a Zoom, a couple of Zooms late tonight. So yeah, it's not, I would say the short answer is I don't have a really set structure at the moment, but it's something that I want to put in place as we're building out this business.
Yeah. Well, I know that you're sort of at the start of it. So are you guys, getting to grips with some digital tools that you really love? Or what are your favorites?
Yeah, I find this stuff so exciting, and just seeing what's available, how you can do things in a way you just never used to be able to. And, I've worked within corporations a lot. I've seen those layers of admin and cost that sits around it. So we're very keen to set everything up in the most efficient way that we can and as automated as we can. We're using probably a lot of the tools that a lot of other people are. We'll set ourselves up with a Google Workspace. We'll plug in Xero. We'll probably plug in HubSpot for managing databases and things like that. And, obviously Zoom or Google or whatever we use for online meetings. They're probably the major ones, I think.
Yeah.
But Google for me was a life changer.
Yeah.
And no corporations would use it. And we were using all this really clunky stuff, and suddenly, everything's integrated. Oh God, so easy.
Yeah. It's such a life changer, isn't it? Suddenly having all that. Yeah.
And the fact that everybody has Google, the good and bad thing is ubiquitous, but it is really easy when you, as you would be doing, linking with people from all sorts of different organizations. It is a commonality. Yeah.
And there's a real cultural shift in that, because again, a lot of organizations are all, like, as I said, they're pretty opaque and they hold on to information. What I love about the space that we're all in is there's a real generosity around, curiosity and generosity. And the minute that you stop being frightened of that is, leaking secrets or whatever, everything just flows so much better, and we all become better for it. The other thing is Squarespace for the website.
Yeah.
So easy.
Wow. Well, that brings me to my next question. Where can people find out about Key People and connect with you, Lou?
Probably because we're in the process of setting up the website. My 15-year-old daughter's giving us a hand with that. She did the branding of my own site. And it's a problem with that labor. It's a bit unreliable. So I can't tell you for sure when that website will be up. But in the meantime, LinkedIn is a really easy way to find me. I've also got a website up that's just Lou Johnson, and people can find us through there, and we'll be very visible, I'd say, in the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you so much for coming on. This has just been brilliant.
It's such a great chat. It's really interesting. And I love sort of the changes and where you see publishing. I think it's a really interesting and quite exciting and positive too.
Yeah.
I think it is exciting. It's just change. And I feel like the whole industry has been uncomfortable for a long time because change is uncomfortable. But if you reframe it and see opportunity within that, and people still want to share stories, it's
for sure.
incredibly exciting.
It is.
It is
amazing. Well, thank you, Lou. That brings us to the end of the show this week. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review on the platform where you pick up your podcasts. And we'll also be popping a abridged version in our new show notes, won't we, Lynn?
Oh, yes. Oh, you'll be doing that.
I'll
You're
be doing
that.
That's appearing on the Rachel's List blog,
Yeah.
but also it will be on our website eventually as well,
Yeah.
which is a work in progress, like all
It is.
websites are.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, Lou. Really appreciate your time. I've learned so much and I really enjoyed the chat. It's really good.
Yeah.
And so don't forget to see we connect with Lou and also hear about the Content Bite Summit, which is getting into the last few weeks, which is exciting.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Head to the contentbitesummit.com.au to grab a ticket, a last minute ticket.
Yeah, and I should say thanks again to our sponsors, rounded.com.au, because they're easy in accounting and invoicing software, and they're just made for Australian freelancers and sole traders. So go to rounded.com.au.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.